myself Professor Prachi Vasant, School of Management, Avantika University. Today we are going to take the topic on introduction of taxation. Introduction of taxation. A tax is a mandatory fees or the financial charge levied by any government or any individual or on an organization to collect revenue for public work, providing the best facilities and infrastructure. The collected fund is then used to fund different public expenditure programs. Means this is the most important source of the revenue collection of the government. Mainly the government collect various taxes for public expenditure programs. Be an individual, any business organization or any business organization, companies all have to pay the respective tax in various forms. These taxes are further subcategorized into two taxes. The first tax is direct tax and the second is indirect tax. These taxes, depending on the manner in which they are paid to the taxation authority. The taxes we differentiate only on the basis of the payment mode, because the payment is by the individual only, then it is a direct tax, and if it is on indirect mode, then it is known as indirect tax. So we now go for direct tax. A direct tax can be defined as a tax that is paid directly by an individual or the organization to the imposing entity. It means generally government, because in our country the government is the only authority to charge tax. A direct tax cannot be shifted to another individual or entity. The individual or the organization upon which the tax is levied is responsible for the fulfillment of tax. Mainly, the direct tax is never shifted to any other individual. The person to whom is liable to pay tax is the person to pay tax. Now, go for indirect tax. Indirect tax is the tax levied on the consumption of goods and services. It is not directly levied on the income of a person. Instead, he or she has to pay tax along with the price of goods and services bought by the seller. As we normally go to the market and purchase goods, so including the price, we are always paying GST. This is the burden which is shifted to another person. It means the tax is finally paid, collected and paid by the seller to the government, but its burden is shifted to the customer. The examples of indirect tax are GST and custom duty. Now we will continue only with the direct tax. So the direct tax main example is income tax, wealth tax, but we are taking only income tax in this topic. So our income tax is started in 1880 by British government, but after India gained freedom from the British, the Income Tax Act was modified again, and the current Income Tax Act has been adopted in 1961 and brought into force with effect from 1st April 1962. It is applicable to the whole of India, including Sikkim, Jammu and Kashmir. So this is the main history of our income tax. So our Income Tax Act is applicable on 1st April 1962 in our country with whole India, including Sikkim, Jammu and Kashmir. So go for income tax. The main characteristics of the income tax are: the first characteristic is direct tax. Direct tax means its burden will be never shifted to anyone else. So the assessee have to pay tax to the government directly from his income, his or her income. Second characteristic is central tax. The income tax is a central tax because it is charged and collected by the government, by the central government. Next is tax on total income. What is total income? Total income means the income earned by the various sources less all the deductions under section 80C to 80U is our total income. The income tax always charge on total income. It is never charged on gross total income. It is always charged on total income. The next point is tax exempted limit. If our income exceeds the minimum exemption limit, then only the assessee have to pay tax. For the assessment year 23-24, the exemption limit is 2,50,000 for individual HUF. So the exempted limit is 2,50,000, and if the income earned above 2,50,000, then only an individual have to pay income tax. In case of senior citizen, the exemption limit in year 23-24 is 3 lakh, and for super senior citizens it is up to rupees 5 lakh. Next is health and education cess. Government always charge 4% of our total income tax as an health and education cess. So every individual, every person have to pay 4% health and education cess. Next is progressive tax rate. We always have an income tax slab, that is progressive slab. As the more income earned by the individual or by the person, he have to pay more tax. And if a person is earning less income, then he have to pay with the less rate and less income tax. Next is surcharge. Those whose total income exceeds 50 lakh, they have to pay surcharge. It means the total tax amount including the surcharge. Surcharge rates are different. For example, if the income exceeds 50 lakh, then surcharge is 10% of the total income tax. If our income exceeds 1 crore, then the surcharge is 15% on total income tax. So these are some characteristics of the income tax. Once more, the direct tax, central tax, tax on total income, tax exemption limit, health and education cess, progressive tax rate and surcharge. For the better understanding of the income tax, we have to go for some important terms. The most important term as per the Income Tax Act is person. Person. So as per Income Tax Act, section 231, person includes individual. What do you mean by individual? Individual means a person. It may be male, female, children, major, minor. So all those people are included in individual. If they earn income above the exemption limit, they all have to pay tax. The second person is HUF. HUF means Hindu Undivided Family. Hindu Undivided Family is the ancestral business families. Those are registered under Hindu Undivided Act. So all the persons in this family are co-partners, and the head of the family is known as Karta. So all the family members, including married women and unmarried daughters, all are included in HUF. The next is firm. Firm means a partnership firm where two or more than two people get for the same motive to earn profit and they are doing a lawful business. These are known as firm. So if firm earn profit, then they are liable to pay tax to the government. The next is AOP, Association of Persons. This is similar to the firm, but two or more persons are get together, two or more firms are get together, two or more companies are get together for the same motive to earn profit are known as AOP. So if AOP earn profits during the year above the exemption limit, they also have to pay tax. The next is company. A company means joint stock company, which is an artificial person created by the law. They have a common seal and have a perpetual succession. They issue their shares to the public for raising capital. The company earned a profit during the year have to liable to pay tax. The next is local authorities. Local authorities means a development authority which is generally governed by the government, and these authorities are also liable to pay tax during the financial year and their assessment year. So for example, municipal corporation, for example, development authorities, for example, consumer courts, these all are local authorities. The next is artificial person. Artificial persons are created under a specific law. So for example, universities, deity, etc. So if they also earn profit, then they also have to pay tax during the assessment year. So this is the important term, that is person. So all those are involved in all these authorities, these all have to pay tax. Second important term is assessment year. because we always have to pay tax in the assessment year. So assessment year is the most important term to know about. So as per Income Tax Act, Section 2, subsection 9, assessment year means the period of 12 months commencing from the first day of April every year and end on 31st March of the next year. An assessee is liable to pay tax on the income earned in the previous year during financial year. If our assessment year is 23-24, then our previous year is 22-23. If our assessment year is 2021, so our previous year is 1920. So in which year we are going to pay tax, its previous year income is taxable in this year. Now another most important term is assessee. What is assessee? Assessee means a person who is liable to pay tax. A person who is liable to pay tax. It means a person, we already learned about the person, HUF, individual, a firm, local authorities, these all are persons. So those who are liable to pay tax is known as assessee under section 2 and subsection 7 of Income Tax Act. Or liable to pay penalty. If we are not submitting our income tax properly, so the income tax authority charge penalty on us. If we are delayed in payment of income tax, then including interest we have to pay. So assessee is the person who is liable to pay tax, is liable to pay penalty, is liable to pay interest, or taking refund from the government. So if we submitted advance tax more than our actual tax, then we are claimed for refunding of tax. Or the deemed assessee is also known as assessee. What do you mean by deemed assessee? So deemed assessee is the person, if a person is deceased in the previous year and his nominee have to pay tax of the deceased person, this is known as deemed assessee. So the next important term is heads of income, because income tax is always charged on the income. For the purpose of calculating income, the income is distributed in 5 main sources. So the first main source is income from salary. What do you mean by income from salary? So income from salary is a remuneration given by the employer to the employee against the services given by the employee. For example, employer gave him salary, dearness allowance, entertainment allowance, traveling allowance, bonus, commission, facilities, etc. So all the aggregated amount given by the employer to the employee is known as salary, and the income earned is taxable under the head income from salary. The second most important source is income from house property. If a person have a house property, then he can use this house property in 3 ways. The first way is for the self-residence. If we are using our house for the self-residence, then we are not able to earn any income. We are only using our house for our self-residence. So, there is no income. Second option is we are using our house for our own business. If we have a house property and the assessee want that he start his business from his own house property. So again there is no income, because the income is treated under business and profession head. The third use of the house is we are going to let out. If we let out our property, then the rent received from the house property is taxable under the head income from house property. The third head is income from business or profession. There is 2 terms, business and second term is profession. Business means either we are manufacturing business, either we are trading business, either we are assembling business. So business means if we are selling goods and purchasing goods. So selling and purchasing is basically known as business. So if the assessee earned profit during the previous year through the activity of business, then this income is taxable under the head business. And profession. What is profession? It means we are giving services to our clients. For example, doctor, lawyer, engineer, CA, these all persons are giving services to the client. So fees received during the previous year by this activity is taxable under the head profession. So the third head is income from business and profession. Now we are going for the fourth head, income from capital gain. What is income from capital gain? So capital gain means if we have a long term or the short term assets held with the assessee and assessee sold these assets in the previous year, and the income earned from these assets is taxable under the head income from capital gain. So short term assets means which is held by the assessee for 3 or less than 3 years, and long term capital gain, long term assets means assessee held the assets for more than 3 years. So if we sold our long term or the short term assets, and income gained by these assets is taxable under the head income from capital gain. Now we are going for income from other sources. Income from other sources means the income earned except of all these four sources. It means income from salary, house property, business and profession, and capital gain. Except of these sources, if we have another income like interest, like dividend, like let out of plant and machinery, furniture, like lottery income and casual incomes, like income from writing articles, income from radio talk, income by playing sports. So all these incomes are taxable under the head income from other sources. MPs and MLAs salary are also taxable under the head other sources. So this is clear to all, head of income. The next important term is gross total income. Gross total income means the aggregate income from all 5 heads of income is known as gross total income before making any deduction under section 80C to 80U as per section 245 of Income Tax Act, section 2 and 45 subsection. So the gross total income means the total income from all 5 heads: income from salary, income from house property, business profession, capital gain and other sources. So aggregation of all these incomes without any deductions is known as gross total income. The next term is total income. The total income means the amount left after making deduction under section 80C to 80U from the gross total income. Okay, this is the income on which the tax is charged by the income tax authority. Never tax will be charged on gross total income. Tax is always charged on total income. For the purpose of income tax, the most important term is person. Person means we are talking about in this portion we are talking about individual and HUF. For individual and HUF, we have 2 types of status, that is residential status and non-resident status. Non-resident Indian is basically known as NRI, as we all know about NRI. Okay, so resident Indian and non-resident Indian. For the determination of resident Indian and non-resident Indian, we have some basic conditions. Afterwards, the resident Indian further categorized in 2 categories: ordinary resident Indian and non-ordinary resident Indian. To determine this ordinary and non-ordinary resident Indian, we have some additional conditions. So the basic condition for determination of resident Indian and non-resident Indian, the first basic condition is he has been in India in the previous year for the period of 182 days or more. If a assessee lives in India in previous year for 182 days in India, then he or she is a resident Indian. And if he is not following this condition, it means he is in India for less than 182 days, then he become a NRI. We have one more condition for residential status. Second condition is if a person lives in India for 60 days during the previous year and 365 days in preceding 4 years that of previous year. It means 60 days in the previous year and 365 days in preceding 4 years. It means if we have assessment year 23-24, then the previous year is 22-23. Preceding 4 years are 21-22, 20-21, 19-20 and 18-19. So in all 4 years, the person have to live only 365 days in preceding 4 years. If this condition is completely followed by a person, then the person become a resident Indian. otherwise he is a NRI. So only one condition have to fulfill in both the two basic condition, so a person become a resident Indian, otherwise he is a non-resident Indian in India. For the purpose of determination of ordinary resident Indian or the non-ordinary resident Indian, we have two additional conditions. So if a person fulfill both of the additional conditions, then he become an ordinary resident Indian. And if he is unable to fulfill any of the basic condition or one of the additional condition, then he or she will be a non-ordinary resident Indian. So the first condition is he has been resident in India at least 2 out of 10 previous preceding years, that of previous year. It means in the preceding 10 years, they have to be 2 years minimum resident Indian. 2 years resident Indian means they have to fulfill 182 days condition or 60 days and 365 days condition in the previous year. Our second additional condition is he has been in India for at least 730 days in all during the 7 previous years preceding the relevant year. It means again the same, in the preceding 7 years he has to complete only 730 days in India. If a assessee fulfill both of the additional conditions, then he or she become an ordinary resident Indian for assessment year. And if a person fulfill only one or none of the any basic additional condition, then he or she will be a non-ordinary resident Indian. As this chart display the person of the resident Indian and the non-resident Indian. But this all basic and additional conditions are only applicable for the individual and HUF. But for the firm, company and other entities, the person have only two categories, that is resident Indian and non-resident Indian. Resident Indian means a firm, a company which is established in the India and controlled and managed from India, then he is become a resident Indian. But if a company or firm who is out of India and control or manage outside the India, then it is become a non-resident Indian. For companies, for firm and other things, ordinary and non-ordinary is not given, only resident and non-resident Indian status is mentioned. If we are talking about HUF, so for HUF, the Karta is the person whose residential status is the HUF status. So these all conditions for basic and additional conditions are applicable only for person, it means individual and HUF. And for the firms and companies, there are only two categories, resident Indian and non-resident Indian, which is basically based on the controlling of the business. If controlled from the India, then it is a resident Indian company, and if it is controlled outside the India, then it is a non-residential status company.